What's going on, sis? Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of a Real Girls Girl podcast. So, in today's conversation, I actually want to start it off with a question. Have you ever just sat and asked yourself, what would my higher self do? What would the best version of me do in a situation like this? Whatever the situation is. If that's something that you never asked yourself, sis, I completely encourage that you start making that a habit. Like, put that in your vocabulary, start just making that a requirement in your reasoning and your logic system because there's so much power in that question alone. And I'm going to tell you why. So, I was unhinged when I was younger. Like, the younger me, I was reckless with my mouth. I was just not, I had no boundaries. I did not respect other people's boundaries. Like, I was that girl that was always willing and ready to pop off at any given moment. There was just so much was wrong. And as I got older, obviously, maturity thankfully kicked in because I know maturity don't be kicking in for everybody. But thankfully, maturity kicked in and I got to a point to where I started to realize that, that behavior wasn't serving me. It really was not going to help me achieve any goals, any desire I had for my life. It was actually doing the opposite. I got to that phase, right? So maturity started to kick in, making some better changes. The one challenge that I had for a long time, though, was figuring out how to handle challenges in real time, like how to handle them properly. I struggled with this. And I always would sit back and I would get so frustrated with myself because I would replay a situation. I would think about how I handled it, and then I'd go into over analysis about, dang, I hate that I handled it like that, or I wish I would have said this, this, and that, or I should not have said, fill in the blank. So I would go into this deep analyzation of this shoulda, coulda, woulda, and it would really, it would bother me. It would bother me for a long time. It would take me a long time to get over it because I always question, like, why did I handle it that way? Or I wish I would have handled it better. If you ever find yourself sitting in a space like that, I want you to start getting into the habit of asking yourself that question. And, I'm a firm believer in starting small. I feel like a lot of times when you are, trying to go for gold right out the gate, sometimes that can be overwhelming. So start off small. Find something that's minimal. If you know that you have a tendency of, going into work, for example, and there's that one coworker that you really can't stand, she know you don't like her, you know that she don't like you, but y'all got to work together. I want you to start preparing yourself before you even walk into the building. Start asking yourself, okay, when Becky does A, B, and C, what is my higher self going to do? What is the optimal version of me going to do? How am I going to handle this? And the reason I want you to think about it from your optimal version, from the highest version of you, is because that's going to do two things. That's going to start programming your mind to see yourself in that light in every regard, because you're going to do it in every regard of your life. So your brain is going to start rewiring to the belief system of she only operates as her optimal self. That's the only thing that she does. That's number one. And then number two, it will give you a very clear distinction of things or areas that you need to improve on. Because if you're struggling trying to figure out what your optimal self would do, then that means that could be an area where there's a little bit more inner work that would need to happen. So I'll give you an example. For me, when I would really get upset with my spouse, for example, I had a really bad habit of when I would get frustrated, I would start talking real fast and I would like talk over him too. And it wasn't always like, we yelling and cussing each other out. I would just start talking faster and I would not allow him to finish his sentences. I would, feel like I had to like it was just knee jerk. It was such a knee jerk response that I had. And I remember that I was in therapy one day. I was talking to my therapist and I was explaining what I was doing. And I said, it's not until after I replay the conversation that I realized that I did it. I wasn't even cognizant that this was something that I was doing. And I was like, I don't even know why I do it. And she said, well, I have an idea of what it could be. And this is, that's my girl. My therapist is my girl. Side note, if you are someone that is actually interested in therapy, one little nugget I want to throw in here, get the right therapist. Like when I tell you therapists are like gynos, they're like gynecologists to me. Don't just pick the first one and be okay with it. Like you gotta, if you, it's okay to fire your doctor. If you gotta find a couple of them, if you gotta go through a few before you find your person, go through a few before you find your person. Like don't just settle for any type of doctor, any type of therapist, because when I tell you, it makes a world of a difference. Like your quality of treatment, health, it makes a world of a difference when you just find the right one. So anyway, that's my girl. So she said to me that, she had an idea of what it could be. And basically, she said, your nervous system is unregulated in certain topics, because if there are specific topics that make you uncomfortable, whether you feel like it's, opening up a wound, you know what I mean? It's flaring up an inner trigger that you have, or it's just putting you in a fight or flight. Your nervous system is reacting and responding by, let me get out what I need to say as quickly as possible. And I'm also going to prevent you from talking so that way, whatever it is that you say, it won't penetrate. And she was, mind you, she was right on the money, because it was only certain topics that I would do this in. So when I started putting in practice, what would the higher version of me do? What would my optimal self do when I'm in these uncomfortable conversations with my spouse? It really did help when it came down to communicating, to the point to where when we would get to those uncomfortable topics, I would have to say, hey, I'm not comfortable having this conversation right now. I need to take a pause. And when I'm ready, when I feel more comfortable, I'm down for us talking. It's just like right now, I don't feel like I will react appropriately if we continue this conversation. It has taken me a long time to get to that answer though, because I had a challenge of trying to even figure out what would the highest version of me. Hell, I don't know. That's right. That's where I had some exposure. Okay, you need to work on that. You need to figure out, you figured out the why. Your therapist helped you understand why you do it. So now you need to really start connecting the dots in terms of, okay, is it a specific topic? What is it about this topic that's making you respond like that? It really does open up the doors for you with just that one question alone. What would my highest self do? Start asking yourself that. Start asking yourself that and watch your decisions be completely different. Watch your reactions be totally different. And more importantly, watch that anxiety, because that's what that is. It's anxiety when you are over analyzing the shoulda, coulda, wouldas of a situation and thinking about what you wish you would have done differently. That's your anxiety. It will reduce that tremendously. All right. So, hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sure you did. I know you did. Until the next one, take care of you.